Hey guys, I'm Haseeb, and in today's video, I'm going to explain to you exactly why most cold outreach fails and why you've probably been banging your head against the wall trying to make cold outreach work. Here's the thing, you're following all of these YouTube videos and all of these gurus and what they're telling you. You're following it to the T. You're doing exactly what they say. You're using the exact same platforms. You're using the same copy. In some instances, you're looking at your competitors' cold outreach messages and you're just copying that, thinking, okay, this is going to work. Like if I copy everything, surely I get the same results. But that's not true. And there's a reason why you're stuck where you are right now. The purpose of today's video is to explain to you exactly why you're stuck in this loop and give you the tools that you need and the foundational principles that make cold outreach work so that you can go away and at the end of this video be able to take these concepts that I will explain to you today over the next hour or so and apply them directly inside of your business to actually get results. Like actually get your cold outreach systems working, how they're supposed to be, how you see everybody else's work. It's going to be quite an in-depth video, but trust me, it will be 100% worth your time. The first concept that I want to explain to you is a very misunderstood concept. And it's misunderstood not because people don't understand the importance of it, but it's actually because they don't understand the deeper reason behind it. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about volume. Everyone who does any type of cold outreach understands the importance of volume. I know you don't need to be told again for the 1000th time that you need to increase your volume. But here's the mistake. It's so much more than just doing more cold outreach. Once you understand the reasoning behind why it's so powerful and the catalytic effect of doing more volume, then you'll actually be able to commit to increasing the amount of cold outreach you do. It will no longer feel like a chore and it will feel like you're actually building something even when it feels like you're not getting any results. And that's super important because 2 years ago when I had no clients and I was thinking to myself, was it even 2 years ago? Was it like 3 years ago? Anyway, a long ass time ago when I had no clients and I was like trying to work this all out. I was trying to work out this whole appointment booking thing and all I'd hear is volume. You just need to send a lot of outreach. You need to send a lot of outreach. So I knew as a fact, 100% in my head, as you do right now, you know for sure that you need to send a high amount of volume of outreach. But yet, for some reason, you're still not convinced enough to actually follow through and go and do that action. Like, let's think about it. You know for sure that cold outreach works. You know that you need high volume to actually get results from it. But yet, the third thing is missing, like the action that you need to take is missing. I was in this exact position a couple years ago, and I believe sincerely that the reason why that was because I didn't understand the power of what would happen to my system once I started putting in the volume. But it's in two different ways, okay? The first one is obvious. More volume, more input, more output, okay? The more people you message on your LinkedIn outreach system or on Instagram or cold email or the amount of businesses you're cold calling, the more you do, the more positive results you're gonna get, okay? That's completely simple. That's easy to understand. What you might understand and what a nuance is about that specific point is that the people who are doing more than you and the people who are booking more appointments than you are doing an astronomical amount of volume that you probably can't even imagine. Like if you think sending 100 cold DMs per day is difficult, wait until you find out that there's individuals who are hungry enough that they're happy to send 600 DMs by themselves every single day on their own from multiple different accounts. Like just to give you an example, when I first started my cold outreach for my copywriting offer, I had 20 different Instagram accounts and they were all connected to a hide my account like browser profile where I can store all the different accounts on one device and each one has a different IP address so they don't get cross banned. But I was individually opening every single Instagram account, sending the max amount of messages and moving on to the next one. And I had like 20 different tabs open. I've got the notifications on, so as soon as someone replies, I can go and message them back. But do you know how hectic and insane that was? And meanwhile, there's people who struggle to send 20 DMs from one account consistently every day. So you need to increase like the floor, the standard that you have for what you think like a reasonable amount of volume is. You need to drastically increase that if you want to see any results, okay? Look, I've been a victim of it myself, thinking it's going to be easier than it actually is. One of the most important factors when it comes to determining whether you actually get something done or not is your ability to predict how much effort it requires. The principle is that if you try and do something like cold outreach and it's much harder than you thought, you didn't set your expectations correctly, then after a couple hundred DMs and not getting any results, you're going to quit. And that's really dangerous, because like, you know that meme of someone mining for diamonds and like they're just about to hit the treasure and they stop, and the other person just went a little bit further than you. They just passed the threshold and they had all the treasure on the other side. That's exactly what I want you to think about when it comes to cold DMs, because you don't know, every individual business is different, every offer is different, your niche will react to your offer differently. So you can't measure yourself off someone else's results in another niche in another market. That would be extremely silly to do. Instead, what you need to do is you need to understand that the core principles are the same in every market. If you have an offer that resonates with the pain that your market is struggling with, and you have a solution to that pain, then with enough messages and the correct copy, being able to target those people who are actually in pain will inevitably, 100%, my personal guarantee, you will get you results. You will book appointments, and of those appointments you book, you will eventually have enough experience to actually close those sales calls. Okay? So I want you to get it into your head that results are guaranteed. The thing that isn't guaranteed is whether you will stick around long enough to actually see the results. And that's super important. Never blame the system. Okay? It's never the system's fault. It's never cold DM doesn't work, or cold email doesn't work, cold calling doesn't work. All of these obviously work, because there's thousands and thousands of businesses making multiple millions of revenue every single month, every single day, using these processes. So, just be aware of that cognitive dissonance that you might have. Okay, so we've established that increasing volume obviously increases the results that you're going to get, and the amount of volume that you think you need to do, times it by 10 and be prepared to do that. Okay, and that's when you're going to get results, and that's when everything's going to change. Now that we've got that understood, there's a second concept in volume that is so motivating, because it'll allow you to get through those hard couple weeks where you struggle to get results at the start. Even those first couple days are so extremely painful when you start a new outreach system and you're sending out cold messages to people. You're thinking there in your head, bro, I'm messaging random ass people on LinkedIn, on Instagram. They're not even responding to me. Sometimes I'll get a rude response. Someone will tell me to F off or kill myself, or never message me again. And you need something to get you through that period. I've got some good news for you, because increasing the volume through your system is the core mechanism that allows your system to work in the first place. Now, I'm using the word system a lot, but I really need you to follow here. Increasing the volume through the system allows you to get feedback, right? Allows you to determine, does this system work? Is this system targeting my niche? Is it actually getting results inside of my niche? Am I booking appointments from my cold messages, from my offer? Is there a market offer fit that, once it clicks, that's when you get results? That's what you're kind of trying to fight for. And that's what volume basically tests for. It's basically like a scientific test method. Okay. You need to stop following like specific scripts and specific tips and tricks. Critically think yourself and test your system. That way you absolutely guarantee that it will work for you, because one thing that I can't guarantee to you is that in your next 100 outbound messages, you're going to book 5 sales calls. I can't guarantee you that. But what I can guarantee is that if you send 100 cold messages, you're going to have enough feedback and enough information that you can feed back into the system, tweak your processes, tweak your messaging, until you get to a point where you slowly increase the percentage of people that you're having conversations with. By that proxy, you're now having more conversations. Now they're giving you more feedback that you can feed back into the system. And now those conversations are turning into booked appointments, right? That way you're basically optimizing the system, and the fastest way to optimize a system is by doing volume. What's that story that Alex Hormozy tells about? It's like some old Chinese story about how there was 2 groups of people, and they were given the task of creating the most perfect vase. One group was told that in 1 year's time, I want you to present the most perfect vase, but it's only going to be one vase. Like, you only have to make one vase, but it has to be absolute perfection. The other group had to create, as their goal was to create as many vases as possible. And what ended up happening after a year, the team that was creating as many vases as possible, who were optimizing for volume and increasing the volume, they ended up actually creating a more perfect vase than the person who spent all their time just trying to create the one perfect one. Do you get what I mean? By understanding that story, we can determine that through volume, you get to your optimal results, okay? It's literally like anything. Like, imagine you're playing golf. How do you play golf? How do you get the perfect swing? Do you get the perfect swing by standing there and being super concentrating and watching YouTube videos on how to have the perfect swing? Or do you perfect your swing by doing thousands and thousands of repetitions? That once you unlock that type of thinking, that no cold outreach is wasted, because if you're not going to get an appointment from it, maybe you'll have a conversation where they'll say something that will make you think, okay, I could improve this about my system. That's really important. So those are the two things about volume. Number one, you just need to increase the volume, because that graph, the linear graph, the more inputs the system has, the more outputs you're going to get. The more cold messages you send flat, the more appointments you're going to book. That's an easy to understand concept. The second one is that by pure repetition and pure volume, you're able to have that feedback loop where you have results, maybe subpar results, but you take that knowledge and information and the conversations that you have, and you use that feedback, input it back into the system, tweak your system, optimize your system so that the next 100, 200 messages you send will get better results. And you test and test and test until you get to a point where you have a proof of concept, where you have a minimum appointment booking rate, where you're like, okay, now with this specific set of messages, with this specific sequence, I know that if I send 200 messages, 5 people are going to book an appointment. And that's when you can then just change, keep the system the same and just scale the system to Narnia. Do you know what I mean? You just 10x the amount of input and you know that you're going to have a consistent result from that. But you need to get to that proof of concept stage by failing first. Now let's talk about personalization, okay? So it's 2026 and we both know that in order for a cold message to hit a cold lead in the chest and actually get any type of reaction out of them, it needs to be personalized. You need to say to them, Haseeb, I want to talk to you about your business, right? You need to use personalization. But I'm going to tell you something that you probably haven't really been told before, and maybe you've got some false assumptions about, and I want to clarify this for you because I haven't seen anybody else talk about this. There are two distinct different types of personalization. There's two distinct different types, right? The first type is actual individual personalization. This is where you're using like their name and their specific service, maybe their latest testimonial, where they're from, basically any type of personal information that means that you're talking directly to that person, right? That's one type of personalization, individual personalization. The other type of personalization, which I would put it under the same umbrella of personalization, but I really want to differentiate this because it's really important to understand. And that is niche psychology personalization. It's different to just calling someone by their first name or telling them, hey, I've worked with people in the same area of the world that you're in and blah, we should connect. Rather than doing that, you're taking the angle of niche psychology, which is basically where you understand the problem so well, you actually understand it better than they do themselves. And when you explain to them their emotional state or the pain that they're going through in their business due to this specific problem, and you're able to articulate it in a way that's better than they could themselves, that is when the trust is extremely strong. That's when you get insane results from cold outreach. The whole Dale Carnegie thing of saying someone's name back to them, like, hey James, would you like to work with me? James, do you need SEO services? James, do you need to book more appointments? That's cool. You do need an aspect of that. But truly, the needle mover in cold outreach when it comes to personalization is actually within the niche psychology part, being able to explain the problem to them and how they feel better than they could articulate themselves, okay? That's where the true power comes from, and that's what really builds trust between a cold prospect and you who's trying to actually close them. The most important factor when it comes to actually being successful in this, being able to craft copy that really hits them in the chest and really speaks to them, just comes from a really deep understanding of your niche psychology and the struggles that they go through and the specifics of the problem that they have. And once you unlock that, a lot of people actually have this information. For example, let's say you used to be a fitness trainer, used to be a PT, and used to do online fitness coaching, and now you've transitioned into coaching other fitness influencers on how to run their coaching program. Maybe that's something that you've done. And so you inherently, because you are your own target audience, you inherently have an extremely deep and nuanced understanding of their emotional state and their problems in a way that other people, other generalized agencies or consultants wouldn't be able to do. And so that is your competitive edge that you really need to double down on. A lot of people, they have this understanding, they have this very in-depth understanding, but it's buried deep down in their brain. You need to bring that to the surface and apply it in your marketing, apply it in your copywriting, apply it in your messages, because that really is the difference maker between when someone's on the market and they're looking for someone to actually work with. That is how to actually end up paying them money to get this specific problem solved, is when you can demonstrate that you understand the problem better than them. And in my personal opinion, when I say my personal opinion, I kind of mean the objective truth. Most business owners would agree with me that who actually have done high volume cold outreach successfully, they would agree that having your message speak to the individual about their specific pain and understanding the niche psychology is way more important than just saying their first name or saying, hey, I'm in Dallas, Texas, to want to connect. Do you get what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. The best case scenario is when you combine both types of personalization. That's truly when the prospect feels like you've really put effort into crafting this message specifically for them. And also, not only have you put in effort, but you also are able to actually solve their problem. Because understand, when we're doing cold outreach, we're not trying to make friends, okay? You're not trying to look for your next best friend. You are looking for clients, okay? So, of course, building rapport and building that connection is important, but what's more important than that is the prospect understanding that you can solve their problem, okay? So that's why you need to do both. You need to entice them in, but once they're in, you need to actually, that relationship actually needs to be worth something in trust. There needs to be actual trust there. There needs to be belief and confidence. And that confidence comes from you and how you translate that onto them. It's literally the same in sales calls. In sales calls, the single most important thing is the seller's conviction. And more importantly, how well you're able to transfer that conviction to the person you're selling to. That transfer of conviction is the most important determinant in whether you close the sale. And it's the same throughout the whole sales process. From a cold lead, if you go in and you have the kind of attitude of, okay, you know what? Yeah, you know what, man? I've seen a lot of people like you before. Yeah, I can definitely solve your problem. The only thing is, I'm quite picky with the type of client I work with. So if I could try and work with, maybe we can get on a sales call and see whether it would be worth my time working with you and whether I can actually solve your problem. Because for me, it's very important to have good client results. And of course, part of that is on the client side. Part of that is the client's responsibility. So I'm very careful about the type of people I work with. So do you understand that frame? So you've already made it a predeterminant that you can solve their problem. Okay, you're not trying to convince them you can solve their problem. It's kind of between the lines that you already can solve their problem. The only thing is, will they be a good client? Do you understand how you've twisted it, how you've switched it around? You've switched the power dynamic. And this is where the other type of personalization, like if you're needy and you don't understand niche psychology, the other type of individual personalization won't really help you much, because if I came up to you and I said, hey, I just saw your profile picture. I saw that you went to the Canadian university. That's really cool. My sister's goldfish went to the Canadian university. That's really awesome. And I also saw that you had a client recently who did really well. That's really cool. I'm super happy for you, and it's so inspiring to see you do that for your clients. So yeah, basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to pitch you on my service where, you know, I really believe that I could actually help you and grow your business. And if you just give me this chance, then I promise that I could really do this for you. So you've captured them in by being personalized. Like, they understand, okay, this isn't a mass sent out cold message. They actually came to you and they've gone through at least enough effort to personalize it, to, you know, call you by your first name, talk to you about your specific service, not just say, hey, would you like to get more high ticket clients for your agency? You've said, okay, are you interested in getting more wedding venue clients for your wedding venue marketing agency? See, when you get more specific and you're talking to them specifically like that, that's when you kind of lure them in. You kind of, you know, reeling them in. But then once they've actually been reeled in, you need to then understand the problem enough to demonstrate competency to them so that they actually understand that, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. Okay? So that's really important. Best case scenario is you're doing both, but by far understanding the niche psychology and understanding the prospect's problem and being able to convey that, being able to transfer the conviction to the prospect is by far more important. Understand the caveat that it's 2026, so you need to be personalizing anyway. That's already a prerequisite, right? If you're just going in saying, hey friend, that's not going to work. You have to call them at least by their first name so they know you're talking to them specifically. But beyond that, rather than putting your effort into hyper personalizing it in a way that doesn't focus on their pain, redirect that same effort into market research and a deep understanding of your niche's psychology so that you can tailor your message to really pick up on the pain that they're going through so that they understand that you understand the problem and they have the confidence to actually go ahead and book an appointment with you. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Another thing with personalization and copywriting in general is that be very careful that you're not writing the message for yourself. Okay, this is a trap that I've fallen into and I've seen a lot of my clients fall into as well, which is essentially where you're judging the message based on whether you would react to it, not understanding that your market has a different daily routine to you. They're in a different emotional state. They have different problems to you. They have a different model to you, right? In most cases, unless, of course, the caveat would be if you are your market, in which case, sure. But in a lot of cases, I've seen people kind of tailor their message to themselves. It's something we naturally do as humans. It's like if I was trying to create a logo for a woman's perfume brand, I would probably make it look cool for me, but really what I should, like subconsciously, if I'm not thinking about it, I'm going to make a super cool logo that I think is cool. But really, I need to get into the head of a woman. I need to think about how a lady would view this perfume brand and optimize for that. Do you understand? So optimize your copy and your messaging and the way you interact with your prospects, optimize it for how they are, the demographic they're in. Different demographics react differently to different type of message. If you're trying to sell a crypto course to like people under the age of 25, then buddy, you need to talk to them casually. You need to use lowercase. You need to, act a bit more informal. If you're talking to 55-year-old business owners who've been in business for 20 plus years and have like 500 plus employees and clear 500,000 euros every single month or dollars, then you approach that differently. You're a bit more formal. You're a bit more corporate. Your demographic, each demographic will demand a different type of style and you need to adapt to that. The final thing, this isn't really about personalization, but your copywriting philosophy in general is don't overestimate the impact of all of these messages and the words that you're using. Disconnect yourself from the specific words and sentences that you're using and focus on what this message does in the client's brain. That if you want to know the secret to being a master copywriter, you need to understand it's not about the words you use. It's not about opening a thesaurus and trying to find the most intricate, trying to sound as smart as possible or like being too stylized. Your focus needs to be on eliciting an emotion in your prospect. It doesn't matter how you get there. In copywriting, the ends justify the means, okay? Every single freaking time. The ends justify the means. What does that mean? What does that phrase mean if you don't understand what I'm trying to say? I'm saying it doesn't matter what you're actually writing. If you're actually getting results from it, if you're seeing that this is starting conversations, this is getting the correct emotional state out of my prospect where I can carry on the conversation, talk about the problem a bit more, and get them riled up enough to actually book an appointment, that is what truly matters. And of course, with that, understanding that, mate, take the whole of take copywriting as a whole. 80% of copywriting and 80% of the determinant of what gets you results and what doesn't is simply just the offer. Now, I'm going to make a full breakdown video on how to create a working offer that works for cold traffic in 2026 specifically, and the factors that contribute towards making an offer that really sells, specifically in the online B2B space. But I guess I'll make a full in-depth video on offers. But for now, I just want you to understand that the offer is 80% of the copy, okay? You don't need to talk too much. If you just say, hey, if you just have a banging offer that really just fits your target audience perfectly, you have like a measurable, defined outcome, you have a specific time period in which they can expect to get that result, and you have a type of risk reversal, whether it's a guarantee, like a money back guarantee or a pay on results basis. If you have those if you craft a good offer, your whole entire business will be so much easier and the growth will be so much smoother. I know you already know the importance of an offer, but now that I think about it more, the principles that I'm going to teach in that offer video are going to apply even to people who already have successful offers, but who are trying to scale to, 6 figures per month, maybe going from 50 to 100K per month or more. You don't have to be a beginner for this to be actually useful for you. Now, how can we turn all of this information that I just bombarded you with, how can we actually practically apply this in 2026? Personalization in 2026 is in a state that, you really have to keep up. Otherwise, you're literally going to get left behind and other people are going to take your business. Your competitors are in your dream prospects DMs right now as we speak, and they've reached out with a message that both hits their individual personalization and calls that individual out as a person, talking about their specific business and them as a person and, things to do with them specifically. And it also hits all the emotional points in the prospect's brain that makes them actually reply as well. So it makes them open the message through the personalization, and then the market psychology that's applied to the message makes them actually reply. Okay, your competitors are doing that right now. And so this is why it's so important that you go away after this video and try and implement this as fast as possible. Okay, you're in a race against your competition. So just to give you a high level understanding of how this could be done in today's day and age, especially with AI, clay automations and all of these automations. Essentially what you can do today is have a table, right? You have your lead list, and then you just have a specific prompt within Clay that is able to go and find out absolutely everything there is that would be relevant to this individual's business. Okay, so it goes and scrapes their website for all the information, their recent LinkedIn posts, their social media profiles, their information online, to see, is there anything here? Is there any information that we could target that would be hyper personalized and that would grab the attention of this individual? Once you have a prompt that actually goes ahead and does that research for you, then you'd have a second prompt that uses that information and crafts a specific hyper personalized, hyper targeted message that it generates for every single lead on your list, whether you have 200 people on your lead list or 20,000. It will craft that for you, and then using your automation system, using whatever automation software you want to use to actually send these messages out, you can now send every single prospect at a high volume, a personalized message that makes them want to open it initially and grabs their attention, and then actually gets them to reply. Okay, understand the power of that. Before, this kind of thing would take up so much effort and so much time within your day that doing it at a high volume was that was the bottleneck. The bottleneck was time, right? You had to make a choice. Do I send these hyper personalized, super well made messages to a smaller volume of people, or do I make a generalized message that I can just copy paste and blast to thousands of people? You don't have to choose anymore. You can do both. That is why cold outreach, now is the time to get into cold outreach, because the standard has risen. So the barrier to entry has increased, and if you're anyone who has any type of competitive any competitive atom in your body, then you'll understand that this is for the better. Because if you're in the game to win, then this is 100% a good thing for you. And you should be happy that all of these automations exist, and cold outreach is harder, and it doesn't work. It's harder to get replies and book appointments through cold outreach now, because that means it's harder for everyone. So all you need to do is survive longer than your competition. That's all it is. Okay, the third principle that I want you to understand in order to make a cold outreach system work and really 4x the results that you're getting is speed to response. Why is speed to response so important? Well, it's pretty simple. Each prospect is walking around living their normal day-to-day life. I'm a business owner. I have a problem. I can't get enough appointments on my calendar. I'm walking around, and there's going to be a period at which this annoying thing in my head of, okay, I need more appointments. I want to make more money. I need more appointment. I need more sales calls so that I can close more deals, so that I can make more money. I'm at 25k a month. I'm trying to get to 50k a month, and appointments is the bottleneck. I need more appointments. What is that? What emotion do you think I just demonstrated? I demonstrated pain, okay? Through a prospect's variation of emotion on a specific timeline, they're going to have a moment in time when they have peak level pain. This exact moment when they have a peak level of pain and a peak level of concern towards this specific problem in their business is also the point in time at which they are most likely to act. And by act, I mean book an appointment with you, get on a sales call with you, and buy your solution. That is so important to understand, because once you understand that a prospect isn't gonna have this pain and this feeling of wanting to find a solution at the same intensity forever, okay? It's a specific moment in time, and that's really your chance to capitalize. If you miss this window, there's a very slim chance that you get them in the same state where they have the same level of probability to actually become a client of yours. The lead is hottest when they have replied to you, okay? Your message did something in their mind which made them remember their problem, understand it, feel a certain type of way about it, and messaged you back so that hopefully you can be the savior and solve their problem. And that's why speed to lead is so extremely effective as a lever to pull inside of your business, because if you respond within the first 5 minutes, the percentage chance of them actually getting onto a call, it increases by like 300%. Okay, it's absolutely ridiculous how much of a difference it makes. I can't remember specifically, but it was like if you respond within the same minute, like you've got a 500 times better chance of actually getting them to book an appointment. And businesses today hire people whose specific job it is to just sit there, stare at a screen, and wait for a response to immediately reply as fast as possible, because seasoned business owners understand that speed to lead is one of the most important metrics when it comes to your conversion rate. If you messaged me and said, hey, do you have this problem inside of your business? And I respond and say, you know what? Yeah, I actually do have this problem. If you sit there and let me marinate for 6 hours or one day, or you respond the next day, I'm in a completely different headspace now. Maybe you have a chance of, reminding me why it's important that I have this conversation with you and try and find a solution for this specific business problem. But really, that chance, the highest chance that you had of actually getting me onto a sales call, was when I understood the importance of this problem, which was 6 hours ago or one day ago when I actually responded. Capturing the lead when they're most hot is extremely important, okay? And I want to make a distinction here. There's two types of speed to response, right? There's speed to initial response, and then there's speed to your back and forth. So in that conversation, how quickly are you replying whenever they ask you a question? Okay, both of these have to be dialed in, but the more important factor is speed to initial response, because once they've replied to you and you've replied back at least one time each, now they're kind of in a little bit of a commitment. They're actively inside of a conversation, so subconsciously they've committed to having this conversation, right? And so even if now it takes you a little bit longer to respond between messages, at least they have the commitment and they've built that micro level of trust that you've actually responded to their response, and you've got this back and forth going on. You're at the cusp of actually starting to build a relationship, as opposed to the response rate between messages once you're actively inside of a conversation. but both are very important. Practically, how can you apply this inside of your business today? You could literally have Slack automation set up where every single time a prospect responds to you or a cold lead responds to you, you immediately get a notification and you're able to respond extremely fast. And like I said before, the more advanced version of this, which I would highly recommend for anyone doing above 30K per month, is to hire a dedicated person. If you have enough of a lead flow and you're getting enough volume of responses to initial messages, hiring a specific person whose only sole job it is to literally stare at a screen as soon as that message comes up of, oh, someone's responded, immediately send back a message, immediately respond. And you'll see your conversion rates will double, triple within a couple of weeks. And I'm not even exaggerating. I'm not saying like this might happen. Try it out yourself. This will literally happen, okay? You can literally 2 to 3 times your appointment booking rate just by hyper-focusing on your speed to response, okay? I'm not making this up. It's actually true. If you don't believe me, go and try it. If it doesn't work, come back to me and, we can sort something out. But I'm telling you it'll work, okay? You just have to, just trust me. I know what I'm talking about. And now I'll get on to the most overlooked lever that you can put inside of your business, and that is availability. And the reason why I'm saying overlooked is because maybe it's not as impactful as the amount of volume you do, or how good your copy is, or how fast you respond to prospects. But by making these mistakes that I'm going to explain to you, these simple mistakes, you're leaving a lot of potential money on the table. And that's why, by understanding this, maybe this is a hidden bottleneck that you can instantly uncap and, drastically affect your bottom line positively. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about availability. A big mistake that I see is, especially with beginners, please never do this, okay? The idea of artificial scarcity. Like, oh man, I've only got 2 slots on my appointment. I've only got 2 slots on my calendar because I'm just completely blocked out. I'm completely blocked out. I don't have any time for appointments. Don't do that. Do not do that, okay? The whole concept of converting someone from a cold prospect to someone who's actually booked on your calendar, like the whole thing, the whole idea around it is minimizing friction and minimizing the amount of thinking that a prospect has to do in order to get to that end goal of actually booking an appointment on your calendar, okay? Your job, your only job, is to minimize the friction of that process. And by decreasing the amount of available times you have on your calendar to seem busy, what you're really doing is you're making it difficult for the prospect to make the most optimized, easiest decision for them. Let's say they want to have a meeting at 5 p.m. on a Friday, but you've got that blocked out because you want to just hang out with the lads. What you've done there is you've shot yourself in the foot, because maybe that was the only available time that this person had. And the only reason they're not able to book that appointment isn't because you've got another sales call at that time, but the real reason is because you've made artificial scarcity, which is just ridiculous. By only having a few appointments available, you're minimizing the chance of someone making that decision. Maybe you did everything right. You took them through the whole conversion process inside of the DMs or inside of the emails, or you cold called them and you had the correct talk with them. And they're at a point where they're like, okay, you know what? I can actually trust this guy. I believe this guy has the solution I'm looking for. They go on the calendar and boom, the time that they really wanted isn't there. And so in their mind, they're like, you know what? Forget it. Like maybe, but you know what? Forget it. My time isn't available. And so whatever, I'll just leave it. I'll just do it later. Do you get what I mean? That's really how people think. And that's why minimizing friction is so important, because that's actually how the subconscious mind thinks. Okay, one tiny little inconvenience can derail the whole thought process. It doesn't matter how important that's supposed to be. It's kind of like, imagine you're addicted to meth. Let's say, hypothetically, you're addicted to meth. Okay, you're 10 days sober, you haven't smoked methamphetamines in the last 10 days. And now, that's a really important decision. That's a big goal in life. Of course, that's going to mean a lot. Like, objectively, that is an important thing. The same way booking more appointments or increasing revenue inside of a business is obviously like their main goal. That's a really important thing, right? But now, the meth addict, right? He's going to be walking down the road and he stubs his toe on a post box. What do you think happens? He thinks in his head, okay, you know what? I've had enough. I'm in a bit of pain here. Do you know what? Pass me the meth. I'm gonna smoke meth again. That's basically how they think, and that's just subconsciously what's going through their mind, because they're just looking for an excuse to not do the hard work. It's the same with your prospect. They're subconsciously looking for an excuse to not get on a sales call and not have to sit through the pain of sending money to you to pay for your solution, even though that might be the most smart thing to do that might be the most smart chess move. That might be the unlock that takes their business to the next level. Any type of effort will naturally have resistance, and subconsciously the prospect's brain will be fighting tooth and nail to find any little excuse to not take action. Here's another thing about availability, is that you don't want your prospect booking 5 days out. At a maximum, I'd say 5 days. Remember what we spoke about in the speed to response about the hottest a lead is when they literally respond to your message. And it's literally like a hot stove. If you leave it for 6 hours, it's going to cool down. It's not going to be as hot after a while. Their mental state will shift, and they might not be in the mindset where they feel like they need you anymore. The lead is hottest when they respond. So the earlier you book an appointment, the hotter the lead will stay. Okay? If you speak to a prospect today and you have a really good conversation, they really need your services, and you've given them the conviction that they need to think that, okay, you're the right person for them. If you now book an appointment for next week, bro, their brain's in a completely different place. Like, by that point, they might not even care anymore. They'll be like, the problem will solve itself. I have enough self-belief to think that this problem will solve itself, even if they've been trying to solve it for 2 years and it's not working. It's really important to capitalize on that period. So, the highest conversion rate happens 24 to 48 hours after clicking on the booking link. So if you can get a prospect to book a sales call within the next 1 to 2 days, that is prime, that is optimal. And the chance that they're still in that elevated emotional state to make the decision to pay you and work with you is much more likely than if you now start pushing that to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days out. Because now the chance of them being in that same mind frame of actually wanting to work with someone and solve this problem dramatically decreases. Personally, for my own business, I've seen the best optimal results booking appointments to a maximum of 3 days out. That's when you see the best results. Like, you just don't want to give the prospect time to disassociate themselves from this whole situation of trying to get this sorted. Essentially, what you're doing is you're minimizing the amount of time that the prospect has to essentially deprioritize this as a problem in their life. Okay, you have to understand, people are real human beings. I know it's crazy, but they have a personal life. They have, relationship problems. They have logistical issues. The average person has a lot of freaking problems. Okay, and so these problems pile up, and they're interchangeable. Today, the biggest thing on their mind was how their gold digger of a wife was planning to take all their money. And that's what they're worried about today. Tomorrow, it might be that they need more appointments in their business. And so what you've done is, when they responded to you, you caught them at the time where they weren't thinking about their failing relationship. They were thinking about their business problem and how they need to solve that right now. The further away the sales call is booked, the more these other life problems, their dog's kidney stone, or like their I don't know, whatever personal problem people have, they start to fill up the queue, and the problem that you were focused on, which is their business problem that you have the service and the solution for, that gets sent slowly over time to the back of the list. And that's how you get no-shows, okay? That's how you get no-shows, and that's how you end up with a low closing rate. Also, a really important side note, don't forget about time zones either. If you're in Europe like I am and your prospects are mainly in the US, you need to make sure that your calendar has availability for that time zone. Me personally, I work 24/7, so it doesn't matter if you're in Japan or you're in Jamaica. I'm going to have an appointment booking time that's available for you, and I'll be there ready. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. at night, I'll take a sales call. But that's not ideal. I'm slightly exaggerating, but you get the point. It's think about the time at which your target niche, the bulk of your prospects, will be available for an actual sales call, and make sure that whole period of the working day let's say you're in Europe and you're targeting people in the US, the entire US working day is within your calendar's reach, so that you can maximize on availability, so that in the event that you have a massive influx of people coming in and booking appointments, you have the capacity on your calendar to actually support that. You need to optimize the capacity so that once you increase the volume of output you're doing and the amount of messages you're sending out, eventually you're getting to a place where you actually have enough times available that if 10 people book an appointment today, there's 10 slots ready for them there. Do you know what I mean? You're never going to grow if you're looking at this as a kind of like a obligation and you've set aside 3 hours per day for available time slots for sales calls. It's never going to work, because even if someone was ready to buy from you there and then, they were ready, they're happy to get on a sales call, that 3 hours, that time might not work for a bunch of people. And so you're missing out on business. So, we've spoken about the 4 levers of cold outreach. What do we start with? Volume. The 2 different ways that volume actually affects your system's effectiveness, which is what? Number 1, pure volume, like raw volume itself. As you increase the amount of outgoing messages you have, the more incoming appointments you're going to get naturally. Like it's a linear graph, right? The more messages sent, the more appointments booked. That one's obvious. But also remember that the more messages sent, the more feedback you get from the system, which you can then feed to optimize the processes, so that next time you send the next 100 DMs or the next 1000 DMs, your appointment booking rate gets higher. And over time, you slowly get more feedback, feed it back into the system, optimize, get better results, get more feedback from that. And it's like a flywheel where your system just gets better and better until it reaches its natural cap. And then at that point, once you've got your system dialed in, then you can just scale it forever. Okay, that's volume. The second one was personalization. We went through individual personalization, where I'm calling out your name specifically and saying, you live in this type of house and you have this type of business and you have these types of clients, blah, blah, blah. And I'm super hyper personalized and individualized to that person. And the second type of personalization, which was niche psychology personalization, where essentially I'm targeting the pain of your problem. I'm sending you a message, and the copy, the thinking behind my copy is grounded in my understanding of your problem, and that way I can curate these emotionally charged messages which elicit specific emotions that make a prospect react. That's the second type. So there's individualized personalization and there's niche psychology personalization. Then we went through speed to response, right? So both speed to initial response and the speed once the conversation has started, going back and forth, how much, it's basically momentum, right? Keeping the momentum high. Remember, the lead is hottest once they've responded to you. They're in that peak emotional state where they're willing to make decisions and take action on their business and get onto a sales call with you. And if you don't capitalize on that specific opportunity, the likelihood of you getting them on a sales call and closing them just slowly decreases over time. And finally, we hit, what was the last point that we did? Availability. So no false scarcity. There's no point. You're not tricking anyone. Really what a prospect wants is the smoothest, easiest, most convenient situation for themselves. Your job is to minimize friction. Okay, that's it. There's no point faking scarcity or being lazy, blocking out half of a day because you just don't feel like taking sales calls at that point. Or, oh, I'm not a morning person, so you know what? I only take sales calls after 2 p.m. Just get out. Just get out. It's not going to work for you. If you opened up the entire day, then prospects who were going to book a call now actually have the highest probability to actually select a time that works for them. And it's your job to just turn up and actually take the sales call. Okay? Not only that, but by increasing your availability, you're essentially increasing the capacity for the system as a whole, so that once your outreach systems are dialed in and you're getting an influx of appointments, you can now be extra selective about the type of people that you're actually getting on sales calls with. You can qualify these prospects more strictly so that you get higher quality leads, so that you're wasting less time with less qualified leads on sales calls and you're maximizing the chance that you're actually closing deals and getting money into your pocket. Okay, so what I'm going to do is in the description below, I'm going to leave a simple Google Doc, and it's just going to have a couple questions that you can sit down and ask yourself about your business. And by answering these specific questions, everything that we've discussed today, you'll be able to pit your business against these principles and understand exactly where you're going wrong. Maybe you've overlooked a certain part, and that way you can identify what the actual bottleneck is inside of your current system and fix that specific bottleneck and kind of like just make the system run more smoothly. So I'll leave that in the description. You don't need to put your email or anything, and it's literally just going to be a hyperlink to a Google Doc, okay? Oh, also, it's important to note that these 4 concepts that we spoke about today, the first 2, which is volume and personalization, understand that those 2 are optimizing what? They're optimizing engagement, getting the prospect engaged with your messages and with your outreach, and actually getting that conversation going, okay? The second 2, speed to response and availability, those are optimizing for conversion. Personalization and volume, that is what gets you the most, active hot leads in the first place. And then your ability to be available to actually cater to them, and also the speed at which you're able to keep these people engaged, will determine how much of them actually convert to booked appointments on your calendar. That's pretty much it for now. It was a long video, but I hope it was helpful for you. If there's anything else you want me to go into more depth on, just leave a comment and I'll be happy to go into more depth on it. If there's anything else you want me to make a video on, just leave a comment and I'll go through it. Let me know, subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you tomorrow.